Hey everybody, welcome back to Bible Fun with the Dunns. Today we're studying Colossians chapter number 1 and we're going to get started. So we're starting this new book of Colossians, and this is another one of Paul's prison letters, which doesn't mean he's writing to a prison, he's writing from a prison. He writes this letter along with Ephesians, Philippians, and Philemon, and he's writing to the church at Colossae. This is a church kind of in our modern day Turkey. And Paul is writing to this church. Now, it's not like a lot of his other letters where he started a church and now he's trying to give them some extra words. He didn't really seem to know these folks. He didn't start this church, but he's sending a letter. He sends this letter by his friend named Tychius. And if you keep reading, Orville says hello. If you keep reading, Philemon was probably a member of this church. So anyway, with all of this going together, Paul is talking about how very important Jesus is, how important the church is, how important it is to live for Jesus and all this stuff. And you got to remember, when he's writing this from prison, none of this stuff, like he's not sitting on the beach somewhere drinking a Coke and enjoying his day and telling us what we need to do, the hard stuff, versus him just kind of chilling out. Understand, when he's writing this, he means this stuff because he's writing it from a really troubled spot. So what was your takeaway?
My favorite section was verses 15 through, I guess, 20 or 22, talking about the preeminence of Christ. I loved the reminder of the character of Jesus. It says, he's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him, all things are created. I think of one of those verses we love, by him and through him and to him.
That's right.
Everything has its being.
That's right.
And it's just a good reminder to me that he's in control. He's with us, and he also goes before us. He was plan A from the beginning, from the very beginning. And I love everything about his character, the fact that he came to earth to be with us, the fact that he always was. It's reassuring to me as a follower.
I get that. I like how in verse 16 where you were talking about, for by him all things were created that are in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created through him and for him. That takes me all the way back to Genesis chapter number 1, where the biggest words in the Bible, in my opinion, are kind of those first words of the Bible. In the beginning, God created. Listen, if you can wrap your mind around that, then everything else makes sense, because this God who steps out of nowhere onto nothing, speaks everything into existence, that's the first few words of the Bible. And so if he can do that, he can do any of the rest of this stuff. And what it says here is that spoken voice, that power at creation was Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so at the very end of chapter 1, this is what I liked. It's talking about this mystery. Now you're going to hear Paul talk about a mystery kind of over and over in his letters. And he's not talking about something that we still don't know. He's talking about something that in the Old Testament times, they were a little cloudy, a little fuzzy on. They didn't really fully flesh out. But Jesus was the fulfillment. Like, it was a mystery then, but we know it now. So like in verse 26, he says this, the mystery which has been hidden from ages and from generations, but now has been revealed to his saints. To them, the saints, that means saved people. To them, to us, God willed to make known what are the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles. Which is, what's the mystery? Christ in you, the hope of glory. And him we will preach, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom, that we may present every man perfect in Christ Jesus. So this mystery that verse 26 is talking about is defined in verse 27, that it's Christ who indwells believers. Listen, here's the thing. Genesis chapter number 1, Christ is creating. In Colossians chapter 1, Christ is indwelling. And what comforts me is the fact that I don't just know about Jesus. I don't just have a peace with God. I have a piece of God living in me because Jesus lives in me. And he's dwelling in me for the purpose of transforming me to look more and more and more like Jesus. I'm telling you, this mystery, this is what the Old Testament saints, they would have given anything to experience. I think what you and I get to experience, which is Jesus living in us. We read throughout the Old Testament oftentimes these great miracles that happen, and it says, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon them. Well, listen, the Spirit came upon people sporadically and temporarily in the Old Testament. But nowadays, now that Christ has died, was buried, resurrected, ascended to the Father, he lives in us permanently now.
You are God's temple, and the Spirit of God lives in you.
I'm telling you, I think if we were to talk to these Old Testament saints, if we were to go back and talk to David and Moses and Elijah and the prophets, I think they would be fired up to hear from us what it is every day to have the Spirit of God dwelling inside of us, which may mean this. Most of us aren't as excited about that or as surrendered to that as we ought to be. So as we read through Colossians, let's do it with the idea that Jesus lives in us, transforming us to be followers of God, children of God, and disciples of Jesus. So let's do that well. All right, have fun with Colossians. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.